Welcome back to the Champagne Empress Podcast, your sanctuary for feminine power, magnetic attraction, and living a life of deep love, luxury, and devotion. I'm your host, Georgette, your feminine and embodiment coach, lifestyle curator, and your favorite Empress in heels. So, as you know, here we don't play small, we sip slow, seduce life, and live in full expression of our desires. Whether we're talking about money, romance, soul awakening, or champagne worthy wins, this is where women come to remember who they are. So I want you to pour yourself a glass of whatever you're drinking, light a candle, and let's step into your next level together. As you know, before we start, I like to do a little bit of energy recalibration, okay? So I want you to take a deep breath and exhale. And I want you to ask yourself something quietly. Where in my life am I explaining instead of enforcing? And take another deep breath. Exhale. And think about it, because today we're not talking about standards you talk about. We're actually talking about standards you uphold. Because today's episode is called Magnetic Standards, What High Value Women Actually Enforce. And listen, ladies, we're going to be super real, okay? And it's going to sting a little today. And I'm going to hold your hand while I walk you through this episode. Because what you have to understand is having standard is easy. And some of you have not been enforcing. Meaning enforcing them is where embodiment begins. Are you actually embodying, or are you just talking and saying, I have standards, I'm not going to accept this? Because the standards that you uphold start at home when no one is watching you, okay? Because I want you to understand there's a massive difference between saying, I don't tolerate disrespect, and actually leaving when someone disrespects you. Have you ever been in a situation where you say, I don't tolerate disrespect, and then you get disrespected, especially in relationship, and you decide, I'm going to work it out. I'm going to stay. You know what? They never have done it before. But yet you're saying, I don't tolerate disrespect. Yes, life can be complicated. Yes, you could be married. You're not going to throw away your marriage over this, right? There's a lot of excuses that we make for certain things. And there's also a difference between I deserve consistency, okay? You're saying that to yourself and everybody else around you. And you actually continuing to entertain inconsistency when it comes to dating, when it comes to a man not following through. You're like, you know what? He's busy. Stop making excuses. High value women are not defined by what they desire. They're actually defined by what they allow. So I want you to ponder on what are you allowing in your life and your relationship everywhere around you. And before we go any further, you know what? Let's break down what standards are, okay? Because a lot of you actually confuse standards with preferences. So let's break it down. Preferences are, oh my God, I like them. Tall, green eyes, man bun, whatever, tall and handsome, all these things, right? I prefer for him to make $200K a year, $1 million a year, whatever. Those are preferences, right? You actually prefer someone's lifestyle, the way they show up. It might be how they work out all the time, or how they do yoga, or how they travel. This is a preference. It is not standards. What standards are actually, regardless of the preferences you choose, they are respect, how someone shows up for you and respects you. How are they offering emotional safety? Those are standards. And reciprocity. Is someone just taking and not giving anything? Like, what are your standards on that? and integrity. You want someone with integrity. So is your husband showing up in integrity? Is your friend showing up in integrity? The person you're dating, are they showing up in integrity? And if they're not, what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? And effort is a standard, okay? Are they giving effort? Are they putting effort here, there, whatever? You have to understand that preferences are flexible. If tomorrow a 5'5" man comes to me and he has integrity, respect, and give me emotional safety, I'm upholding the standards that I set for myself. And he has all of that. Yes, my preference will change because they're flexible. Your standards are not. You stand by them. And the reason a lot of you feel frustrated when it comes to dating, business, even friendship, it's not because your standards are too high. Because we hear this a lot. Oh, well, if you lowered your standards. No, we are not lowering our standards. We are a sovereign being. We're not doing that. And the reason why you feel all those things, though, is because you're not enforcing your standards, or you're being inconsistent in enforcing them. And here's the thing. We've all been there. We all have been there. There were situations we say, oh, this is what I uphold. And we were inconsistent and following through. I want you to know that the divine feminine is soft, but she is not negotiable. And that's the dark feminine edge that she brings. She does not threaten. If something happens, she's not going to scream and kick. She's not going to make a big announcement. When the divine feminine in you notices that your standards are not being met, you withdraw access. That's what you do. And that's the piece, actually, that make people very uncomfortable. Because here's the thing. When you are actually enforcing your standards, it's going to require loss. And that's why it's so difficult, because you're familiar with your spouse, your friends. There's a familiarity, there's a camaraderie that you're not willing to let go. There's a potential of what it can be. So you're afraid to lose your friend. You're afraid to lose a man. You're afraid to lose a client. You're afraid to lose an opportunity. But what you don't realize is when you actually stand and enforce your standards, you gain self-trust. And darling, self-trust is magnetism. So I want you to show up for yourself and trust yourself in the decisions and not solely feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose this. I want you to understand what you're gaining, which is your self-trust. Because when it comes to love, I see it all the time. You have to stand on business. Your standards are your business. If a man says to you, oh, I didn't text you back today, and for 2 days, I'm just bad at texting. And then here you are, you're like, but I need consistency. And you're still entertaining his, I'm just bad at texting. Believe me, I'm bad at texting. However, I'm good at making a phone call. I'm good at meeting in person. So stop excusing people's behavior when it's a non-negotiable for you. So if someone say I'm just bad at texting and they're not communicating with you and you know that you want consistency, but then you stay anyway, what it's saying is I'm not enforcing my standard. So therefore, you're not actually showing up for yourself. And therefore, you're allowing it. You negotiated it. And what happens then, the nervous system registers that, okay? And then when your nervous system registers all of this, what it's saying now is, you know what? My needs are optional. My needs don't matter. It's okay if he does this. It's okay. No, we are women who show up in regulating our nervous system. So in order for your nervous system to register what you desire, you have to enforce your standard. So here's a shift that's going to happen from now on. And I want you to understand magnetic women do not beg for standards to be met. We don't even say this is my standard. We observe, then we decide, then we act. We don't have to put a whole performance. We don't have to create a whole drama. We don't have to write a whole essay into why we're not compatible or why we're exiting or why we're removing access. We observe, we decide, and we act when we're enforcing the standards. And I want you to see how it looks like in business, right? So when it comes to your business, enforcing your standards looks like this. Like not discounting your rate because someone decides they want to pay you X, Y, and Z. Not over-delivering to compensate for insecurities or anything, or accepting late payments over and over and over. And yet you have a standards for yourself that you don't accept late payment. And actually, it looks like not answering your phone at midnight because someone texted you, but you don't want to lose a client, so you feel the need to respond. You need to set those standards for yourself. And the thing about it, when you don't enforce that, your boundaries wobble. When you wobble on your boundaries, your pricing wobbles. Because when you don't trust yourself, when you're shaky in who you are, your negotiation is also going to be shaky. Your foundation becomes shaky. So I want you to understand that standards are not romantic, okay? They are structural. So they are something that you do not negotiate. And when you have structure, that's how you build luxury. Luxury in living, luxury in your place and your peace and all of that. And here's the thing. This is a no judgment zone here. Things happen. We've all been there. I've been there. I was at a point, a woman who says, I'm not going to tolerate inconsistency and then make excuses. So when you enforce your standards calmly, you actually regulate your nervous system. You regulate the room. And people around you feel it. Not because you're actually letting them know, not because you're aggressive about it, but because you're so anchored in your self-trust and who you are. And I want you to know that the woman who actually leaves at the first red flag, she might be judged, yes, but she is respected. The woman who says, this doesn't work for me, and actually means it, she becomes unforgettable. So, let's talk about why we struggle to enforce. Besides the fact that we feel like it's a loss, we actually confuse enforcement with rejection. We think, if I enforce this, I'll lose them. Darling, it's not true. You're going to gain. But here's a question I actually want you to ask. If you have to shrink yourself to keep anyone, a client, a lover, what exactly are you keeping, really? Can you answer me that? What are you keeping? What are you gaining? Magnetic standards require detachment. And when I say detachment, it's not no emotion, no nothing like that, right? We're talking about detaching without actually disappearing. We're not saying ghost people. That's not what that means. We detach. You don't become cold. You don't become bitter. You simply become selective. And that is a detachment process, because when we detach, we're saying that I love you, I see you, my standards are not being met, nothing against you, it's not going to work for me, and walk away. We have to stop trying to force ourselves into a mold that was not fit for us. And then we complain that they're not meeting our needs. The divine feminine knows something is aligned. It was meant for you. It will stay. It will remain in your life because it is aligned. If it flies, if it goes away, if you lose them, if it leaves, it was not meant for you. It was not in your sovereign best interest. And when you enforce from calmness, not the ego, so listen, we all have the ego that wants to come play sometimes. But when you enforce from calmness, your energy becomes rare. Yes. Because you're not doing it to impress anybody. You're not doing it to gain anything. You're doing it from pure sovereignty. And that rarity is attractive. That rarity is expensive. That rarity has chosen energy all over it. Not chosen by men or anybody else, but chosen by self. So if you feel like you've done this in your life where you set standards and you're not upholding any of them, we're going to shift it today. Because we're no longer going to talk. We're going to walk the walk. So I want you to identify one area where you have spoken a standard but not enforce it. Think of where. Dating, business, friendships, where? Now ask yourself, if I truly believe I was the prize, what would I do next? I didn't say what would I say next. What would I do? Because embodiment is behavior. It's not, what would I say? So who am I being? So go ahead and reflect on all of those. Check all the areas in your life where you have not been showing up in self-trust and for you because you have not been enforcing your standards because of whatever reason, because of the fear of rejection, of losing something, whatever. Now is the time, because as a Champagne Empress, you are ready to embody the life you desire. In order to embody that life, you have to show up, you have to be in it, you have to enforce your standards. Uphold them, not just say it. Everyone can say things, but who are you being? All right, Empress. If this episode resonated and you're ready to move from talking about standards to embodying them in your relationship, wealth, and daily life, I want you to come deeper with me. It could be inside my mentorship, my experiences, because we don't just raise standards. We practice enforcement in real time. Because the shift isn't mindset alone. Sometimes we know we need to do something, but it's nervous system regulation. It's your posture, it's your tone, it's your decision making that matters. And that's where your power stabilizes. So I want you to take a deep breath, Empress, and let that land. And as always, share this episode with a woman who's ready to rise. And tag at the Champagne Empress on Instagram, on IG. And let me know what poured into your soul today. Until next time, stay soft, stay sovereign, and embody the life you desire.